Hi everybody again. Welcome to our pastry unit. I hope you enjoyed making the eclairs last week and the cream puffs. Now we are working on a conventional method of making pastry. So it's called the standard method of making pastry. You will always find you'll have flour, fat, usually lard or shortening or butter, and then water, little salt for flavor. So pastry is really easy to make. Okay, we start off with 375 of all-purpose flour. If you have pastry flour, that will be even better because it is made from a soft wheat, okay, which means that that type of wheat has less protein, less gluten in it. Okay, so I've just added my salt in there, 3 mils of salt, and then we're going to cut in half of your shortening. Okay, so I've measured out my shortening, and I'm going to put in half of it first and cut it into small little chunks. Okay, so about half. Okay, you're going to use a pastry blender or 2 knives, remember. Okay, so you can cut it apart like that with 2 knives, or the pastry blender, you can go up and down motion. Cut it into small crumb-size pieces. Okay, you'll need to scrape it off. It is a little bit too big still. You'll see I've got some chunks like that. You want them smaller. Okay, that is better. You'll see it's pretty fine. Okay, there's no big chunks. The chunks are now really tiny. Okay, that is good. Now remember, that step is to make your pastry tender. Now we're going to add the rest of it. And these larger chunks, we're going to make these ones a little bigger. Okay, and these are going to be the size of peas. I'll say peas, so a little bit bigger. And this will make the pastry flaky. Okay, so here we go again. Okay, here we go. You see we have some larger chunks, so I'll just get those ones, but otherwise we're good to go. Going underneath to check, and we have some small chunks, we have some large chunks. That is what we want, okay? So just a reminder that the small chunks keep your pastry tender, the larger chunks give you flakiness. Remember, you want everything as cold as possible. So now I've got my cold ice water, and my shortening had been put in the freezer for a little bit to make it really cold, and we're going to drizzle this in gradually, just sprinkling it in until the dough forms around the fork. Okay, so just sprinkling it in all the way around and tossing with the fork. Okay. Now, you want to test if the dough will come together, okay? So you may be tempted to add more water at this point, but try first. Try gathering that dough up gently. Just see if the mixture will hold, okay? It looks like it's holding quite well, so try not to be tempted to add too much water. See how it's holding? Okay. Okay, so if there happens to be a little bit more dry in there, just the tiniest little dribble in there, and use that water to gather any extra little bits that may be crumbling up, okay? But just a little bit. Okay, you see that extra little bit of water help gather the extra dough? Okay, so we're going to gather that into a ball. I'm going to gently, with my fingertips, turn it onto a floured surface, or I didn't even need to put much flour on here. It was just very lightly floured because you don't want it to be too dry. Okay, so gather that up into a ball, And then we're going to cut that ball in half and pat those into a disc. Okay, so try to be gentle when you're working with the dough. Okay, gentle, gentle. And if it looks a little bit crumbly, it's okay as long as it holds together. Okay, once we chill it, it will be much easier to work with. Okay, so just pat, pat, pat. So while the dough is in the fridge chilling, you can get your filling ready. You need 2 large apples. Granny Smith is best for apple pie because it has that tart flavor and it's a firm apple. Your recipe does say Macintosh, not my favorite. It's a much softer apple, so if you like a really soft filling where it's not really in chunks, that's what you would choose, more of a Macintosh. These are Fuji, it's just what I had in my house, so use whatever you have in your home. You don't have to use apple, you could use blueberries, you can use whatever fruit you happen to have in your house, okay? So these are just ones I had. Galas will work fine too. The firmer the apple, the firmer the filling will be. The softer texture the apple is, like when you bite into it, if it's a little bit kind of spongier or mushier, then your filling is going to be softer. Okay, so let's peel these and slice them into 1 centimeter slices. We have some sugar and salt, nutmeg, cinnamon, and allspice ready in here. Lemon juice, if you have a fresh lemon, great. If you don't, just use the lemon juice from the bottle. Okay, and then if you have the fresh lemon, use a bit of the rind. Just grate a little bit of the rind for more flavor. Okay, I am adding 15 mils of flour to thicken my sauce. Okay, so your recipe doesn't say that, but I'm going to give that as an option. 15 mils of flour will help thicken the filling so it's not quite so runny. And then we're also adding some cold butter. Again, this is for flavor. Okay, so we'll get this all ready while our dough is okay. So we're going to put in the sugar and the salt, nutmeg, allspice, and cinnamon. If you don't have all those spices, don't worry about it. Just put what you have. If you have just cinnamon, great. If you don't have any of it, apple's fine. A little bit of lemon juice, again for flavor and to keep the apples bright colored. But again, if you don't have it, don't worry about it. Okay, and then the flour to help thicken the sauce. Okay, give it all a good little stir, and then we'll go roll out our pastry. Okay, we're going to start rolling our bottom crust out to fill with the apples. So we're going to take a lightly floured surface, very small amount of flour to begin with. If it starts to stick, then we can add some more. Okay, it's held together nicely. Okay, and because it's already flat and in a round shape, it will help with the rolling. Don't forget to flour your rolling pin. Okay, ready? Down, forward, down, back. Now remember to be gentle. Okay, and a little more flour if we need. Now remember to check with this underneath to make sure it's not sticking. Okay, put a little bit more flour underneath. Okay, so remember, you see how thin it is? You want to get it nice and thin. You want to turn your pie plate upside down and make sure it fits all the way around the pie plate, okay, with extra. Now don't forget, pastry rolling is a little bit challenging. So when you roll, be very gentle. The more you push too hard, it's going to be cracked and crumbly. So be really gentle, making sure as you go, you're just pushing gently out. Okay? Don't forget to check that it's not stuck underneath. Okay. Now that I know this is the right size, okay, I'm going to check again. Yeah, that looks good. We're going to remember roll it onto the rolling pin. Okay, gently lifting it up. If it feels stuck at all, take your metal spatula and just loosen any stuck parts. Okay, so notice I'm rolling up. If it feels a little sticky, I'm just going to loosen that up. Okay, there we go. Rolling it onto this rolling pin. Okay, then I bring my pie plate in, gently lift up, put it onto the edge, and gently unroll onto the pie plate. Okay, now you see there, I want to just gently now lift gently up and let it fall into the pie plate. Lifting up and letting it fall into, using your fingers if you want to kind of push it into the bottom, but make sure you're lifting as you push. You don't want to stretch your dough by just pushing it and stretching it in there and shoving it in there. Okay, you want to be gentle with that dough. So I'm going around and just lifting. If you've got spots that have maybe a little hole, don't worry about it. You can take a little extra somewhere else and patch it up if you need to. Okay, so it should be overhanging a little bit, but pushed into the bottom all around the edge there. Okay, we're going to put this into the fridge now because I think a lot of you want to probably try the lattice top. So we want to keep this crust as cold as possible while we're working with the other crust. Okay, and we'll get the other crust now. Okay, if you don't have enough crust on the edges, you can always take some of your lattice ends and just tuck that in there and squeeze it together. Okay, and just patch it together, and that will give you enough to give you a nice crust. So if you need a bit more over here, okay, that's with the crust fluted along the edge. Okay, you're gonna brush it with an egg wash. This is about 5 to 10 mils of egg yolk mixed with 5 mils of milk. So just a little bit of egg yolk mixed with milk, or if you only have egg white, that works too with a little bit of milk. You could also just use some beaten egg. It doesn't have to be white or yolk, it can be both. Take a little bit of that and it will give you a nice golden brown color on your pie. Remember to put it on the lowest shelf. Oh, it's nice and golden brown, but it could use a little more browning. So we're going to turn the temperature down to 370. For another 10 minutes. Okay, if you find your crust is getting too brown around the edges, you can take a strip of foil like this. You'll need 2 or 3. You can join them together so they're a little bit longer. Okay, so just give it a couple folds so it's a nice long strip. And you're going to wrap it around the edge of the pie plate. And then cook it a little bit further if the middle needs to get more brown. Okay, or if the apples don't feel soft. So we're going to poke a fork through the middle just to see if the apples are soft. Okay, but they should be by now. Okay, but this is called a collar if you need to keep the crust from getting too brown.